Now, from a Catholic perspective, do you find any mythos particularly anticipating or foreshadowing the gospel? Or at least have typological elements in abundance, perhaps, more so than others?
Well, they all do in different ways. That's the funny thing about them. Um, in past occasions, I've spoken about the Trinitarian element popping up. With the Greek pantheon of gods, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades play the role, or if you're a Roman fan, Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto play the sort of semi-Trinitarian roles. With the Norse, it's Odin, Vili, and Ve. The Egyptians and the Norse had the gods who die and rise again. The whole Isis, Osiris, Horus story, and the one of the Virgin who gives birth.
Wow.
With Balder in the Norse, you have the god who dies and rises again as well. I mean, there are a lot of these patterns throughout the world's mythologies and throughout the world's, shall we say, pagan faiths. And this we can owe to two possibilities, which can both be true at once, incidentally. One is the fact that our first parents were given the original revelation. God told them when they wandered in the garden how things were, the realities of life. But these beliefs, this revelation, was more or less corrupted amongst all the peoples of the earth, save the children of Israel. And so bits and pieces of that original revelation are quite possibly the culprit. But the other possibility, as Tertullian says, the soul is naturally Christian. We were made for truth. This would also, incidentally, touch a lot upon Carl Jung's archetypes and the collective unconscious and all that. In that, but again, bearing that he's coming from the other side of it, as it were, seeing it from the other end. Either of these could be true, and they may very well both be, but the point is that these things being objectively true, you would expect them to have foreshadowings in the mythologies of the different peoples, and sure enough, you do.
Yeah.
Just as, in this very obvious one and more historical and doctrinal, is the question of Noah's Ark and the universal flood.
Yeah.
Every mythological system I know of has a story of a universal flood. And as I told one of my teachers in Catholic school, of course, who attempted to show that this proved that the story of the flood wasn't true, since every society has an account of a universal flood. I looked at it and I said, Father, if it was the only account we had, I'd wonder. But if there were a universal flood, we're all descended from its survivors, then I would presume that everybody would have one, which is what you say is the case.
What do you say to that?
Sent me to the principal's office. Remember, whenever you're dealing with something you don't have an answer for, you punish. If you can't answer, silence. So that's how it's done. But honestly, and it's the same here, where a lot of the comparative religions folks and folklorists and mythologists and so forth will turn around is just to say, oh well, so you see the Catholic system is just another mythological system like the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, just so you'll know, what makes our system a tad different is the ability to come up with objectively verifiable miraculous data, like the Shroud of Turin and the Eucharistic miracles and stuff like that. But anyway, I digress.